So the next step, step seven, we're getting close to being done. Step seven, help your residents tenants plan ahead. inform inform residents tenants of the association's communication plan and steps that will be followed to keep residents and tenants informed. So this goes back to the planning that we talked about, the disaster plan, and you got to inform the community. So whether you're an apartment complex, whether you're an HOA, whether you're a hotel, whatever application you are, you have to communicate to the people that are on the property and let them know what the plan is. Provide an association emergency contact persons and phone numbers in the event of emergency. Also, methods of identifying community disaster volunteers. So make sure the community, the residents, have the proper emergency numbers for everyone involved in the community. Encourage residents, tenants to have a plan to fuel vehicles in advance. Obviously, that's important to have your cars and your vehicles ready to go in case you have to leave at the drop of a dime. Be sure to park vehicles in safe areas. Falling trees and limbs and flooding caused over $40 million in damage. So obviously on where your site is, to make sure if the storm is coming, to park where a tree is not going to fall on your car, then you won't be able to evacuate. That's important. Encourage residents and tenants to report post-disaster damage and follow instructions to protect property and document damage. Now that's important, going back to the whole insurance documentation, because once the resident or tenant comes back, whether it's to their business, if it's a shopping center or it's a condo, when they get there, to inspect the property, inspect the outside, try to inspect the roof, inspect the interior, and document any and all damage. Video documentation, like Travis just talked about, pictures, whatever you can do to get that documented. Recommend that residents, tenants with special needs notify the Board of Disaster Planning Committee. Provide evacuation route maps and location of nearest shelters. So basically the evacuation routes that Travis talked about, make sure everyone involved, again, whether it's a hotel, a residence, HOAs, make sure that everyone has that information. Provide a checklist of evacuation procedures such as turning off utilities and use of evacuation. Include emergency phone numbers also. It's very important to have that out there, whether you send your HOAs emails or some HOAs, we've had ones that are older communities where people don't seem to use emails and they post everything up on a board. However you got to do it, the information has to get to the residents. Recommend the residents, tenants plan for pet care. We talked about that earlier. That's very important.
Eric, I want to chime in real quick on one of the things you mentioned, and I think it's extremely important. I just want to kind of share an anecdote because we talked about fueling vehicles and keeping gas on hand. One of the things that we've found, I worked out of our Atlanta office for a long time, and one of the things I saw, and everybody's probably heard about Snowmageddon, which obviously is not a hurricane, but it is still a traumatic weather event that caused extensive damage. One of the #1 problems that they had with evacuation in that storm was, not to mention it was a total mess with the state, but the fact that people were stranded in their vehicles, which the same things happen in hurricanes, for up to 14 to 18 hours. And you're dealing in a winter event there, which obviously it's cold. So one of the problems they had was that over 50% of the people that were on the roads ran out of gas, because most people keep less than a quarter of a tank in their car at all times. So one of the things that's always been a pet peeve of mine in planning ahead, but to always try to keep your vehicles full of gas and always kind of try to keep gas on hand. It's one of the things that we found that it seems pretty simple, but especially we've all dealt with it when you have a hurricane or a major event. Gas stations run out of gas. People need to try to evacuate, and then they're closed, and there's no way to get it. So if you can't get out of town and can't get out of the area, it can be detrimental. So it's one of the things that's, I think, a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, good point. On here also, it talks about absentee homeowners. We have a lot of snowbirds in Florida, as we all know. So it's important that people have each other's numbers. If you're in an association, the residents should have a number list so the people who are not there can help people out. I mean, on here it mentions garbage cans, lawn furniture, broken windows. But if the people aren't able to get back, have someone that's a home watch person or someone that can actually look at your apartment, your condo, your business, and see what's going on with it if you're unable to get there. Associations with clubhouse facilities may develop and communicate plans to use a facility for command and care center. This goes back to the generator I talked about earlier. That's pretty important for the association to have a generator so that the clubhouse can be a safe haven, that people can come and they can gather, and they'll have air conditioning, heat, whatever, and they can plan accordingly. Associations of marinas should advise boat owners of special requirements. We talked about the boats earlier. That's pretty important. We've saw that all over the Caribbean and St. Martin and other areas where boats just were piled up on each other because of these storms. So planning accordingly with the boats is important. Provide a list of recommended supplies, which Travis showed earlier, and that's on our website that can be forwarded to residents. And provide a list of safety tips also. So all this, it's just communication. It's just letting people know whether you're a business owner, a hotel, or an HOA, just communicating all these different factors is important.